All right.
Okay, well, for those that don't know me, I guess Dr. Leslie, I don't think has been here before. And Gail also, but I'm the president of Democratic Club of Delray Beach. We're a progressive club that was started back in the early 90s. Our remit is to.
I've been on before.
Sorry?
I've been on before. This is not my first time.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So,
Welcome back.
anyway, let's get started then. Rich Bartholomew is an expert on redistricting. He's currently a consultant to the League of Women Voters. He's worked 47 years in government at all levels and spent 2 decades overseas after the fall of communism, working on democracy projects. And I am going to share my screen now. Rich, should I start it up?
That'll be fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, so let me do screen sharing. And
I'd also like anybody who's watching to have a pen and pencil ready. There's 1 or 2 things we're going to ask you to copy down for your own use after this presentation.
okay. Actually, I guess I gotta open the,
Very good.
okay, go back to Zoom, share screen. There we go. Share sound, optimize. Here we go. And F5.
All right, you're at the end.
Yep, I am. Well, I have to hit F5 to,
And you just want that where it shows you the lectern. That's the version that you want.
right, except David, I'm hitting F5 and it's not, oh, there we go.
There you
Okay, okay,
All right.
so we're off.
So here we go. The league would like to thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about this critically important subject. A lot of people, not necessarily yourselves, but most people in our system have no clue what redistricting is. It has been played mostly as inside baseball, although in recent years, there's been more and more media attention to it. And it's sort of leaking out about how important it is. But again, the general public doesn't really understand this. But let's start off with what's important to you. Why are you politically active? What do you care about? What's the issue? Is it environment? That seems to be an issue in your club. Is it voting, which is so important to the league? Is it education? Is it gun safety? Is it COVID? What's important to you? Well, redistricting is going to directly affect the fate of these issues in the state of Florida for the next 10 years. That's why we're making a fuss about it. And if you go to the next slide now.
Or not.
It's not advancing.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Okay,
Go
hang
back
on.
one. Okay.
Here we go.
So you may already know that the league is not partisan. As league members, we don't do anything directly partisan, but we are political. And the way I want to describe that to you is that we do not endorse or support individual candidates or parties as the league, but we are deeply politically involved. All right. The league was established in 1920 as women began to vote. And they let us guys in about halfway through of their 100-year history back in 72. Now, our mission is to educate you and anyone else that you will help us to do, and also then to advocate, to use the information actively in the political setting, all right? And we want to do both these things tonight. I want to talk to you, and then I'm hoping that you're going to do some things after we have this discussion. Next slide, please.
I don't know why it's not.
Push the arrow on your.
Yeah, I have the arrow.
And it's not going?
No.
Clearly something worked before.
Yeah.
Touch screen. Can you flip it to the
Let
touch
me-
screen?
Maybe tab? No.
Nope, tab won't do it.
Oh, wait, you know
There you
what?
go.
I can just, I can go down using my mouse.
All right, so let's go. Yeah, okay. So here's what, well, go back, next slide. Okay, here's
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about. We're going to do the, we want to go back up one. Yes, we want to cover the basics about redistricting. We want to talk a lot about gerrymandering. We want to talk about the unique circumstance in Florida that governs redistricting at the state level. And then, of course, we want to talk about how you can get involved. So next slide, please. So here we are, 101. State redistricting in Florida, as opposed to local redistricting, it goes on at every level, is a process of drawing the new election, the electoral district boundaries every 10 years after the census. So every district, whether it's a state legislature, a school board, city council, county commission, all those districts are going to in some way be affected by the redrawing of the lines in the coming weeks and months, all right? Now, who does it? At the state level, it's the legislature. And as is true in a lot of places around the country, there are wrinkles in how redistricting is done. In our state, the state legislature alone draws the maps that govern its own districts for the Florida House and the Florida Senate. Nobody else touches that. The legislature itself does it. For Congress, the governor is allowed to veto the map if he doesn't like it. And therefore, the governor comes into play on the congressional map, all right? And what are they going to do? Well, first of all, they're going to draw 28 congressional districts, one more than we currently have. Why? Because our population grew in the census, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And so now we've added a congressional district for the next 10 years. But on a constant basis, we have 40 state Senate seats, and we have 120 state House seats. So the governor is going to be involved in the 28. The state Senate is basically going to draw its own seats at the leadership level, and the House is going to do likewise in 3 maps that are going to be completed probably before early March of 2022. So the next 90 days are pretty critical in this process. Next slide, please. So the process is pretty straightforward. There's some confusion. You know, there's the census, which a lot of us worked on. Then there's congressional apportionment. You take those new census numbers and you redistribute the 435 seats of Congress based on the relative growth or loss, but mostly the relative growth in all the states. And that's how Florida won an additional seat. But now, after congressional apportionment, which was done in the spring of this year, when we got the extra seat, now we get down to the really serious stuff. Now we draw those lines from which every candidate has to run. Next slide, please. Now, we'd like you to think about this. We'd like you to look at our funny little character here in that box. We want you to remember that what redistricting is going to do, it's going to put you in an electoral box. That's exactly what it's going to do. So you're going to be voting in these new districts, in these boxes for the next 10 years. So those boxes are going to determine the people you're going to vote with, your friends in the box, and which candidates you're going to vote for. Who's going to be able to run to get the support, to get the votes from within that box. Next slide, please. All right. Now, aside from your individual personal concerns, every community and group of voters has a role to play in the redistricting process, even if the people in power aren't too interested. It's important that your voices be heard, not just individually, but as a community in this process, that your needs, and we talked about what is it that your community cares about? Is it education? Is it environment? Is it infrastructure? Are your needs going to be addressed by government? And what about your rights? Okay, what about the rights of the communities within the areas where you live? And I don't mean just minorities, although that's obviously important. So this is both an individual and a community issue, and it's critical to everybody involved. Next slide, please. Now we're going to talk about gerrymandering, a word that gets talked about a lot. Perhaps a couple of you know the history of gerrymandering. Elbridge Gerry, a famous, almost founding father of the United States, as governor of Massachusetts, he created this district, which looked like a salamander. And what he was doing was manipulating the boundaries of those election districts in order to disadvantage a group of voters that didn't share his political views. So he was trying to set up the game, the electoral game, in a way to favor him and his friends, right? And to disadvantage his opponents. And what he did looked like a salamander. So there's the word, gerrymandering is now part of the political jargon all these years later. Next slide, please. Now, in a moment, you're going to see a video, and I want you to pay very close attention. This is a wonderful teaching device. It will make clearer to you than anything I could say how this works. Please go ahead and start it.
Partisan redistricting, or gerrymandering, is about fractions, percentages. These coins represent voters in an evenly divided state, 50 dimes, 50 pennies. These 100 coins elect 10 representatives. That means each voting district must contain 10 coins. Now, real people don't live in neat rows, so let's mix them up. Okay, this is our hypothetical evenly divided state. Let's see what happens if the dimes draw the maps, 10 coins in each district. For the dimes, first thing we do is pack the pennies, give them 2 safe districts, but pack them solid. The remaining 8 districts are won by the dimes, by smaller but still comfortable margins. The dimes win 8 districts, and the pennies win 2. The dimes overwhelmingly control the legislature. Of course, if the pennies drew the district lines, the opposite would be true. Let's rig it for the pennies. For the pennies, we follow the same pack and crack strategy. Pack the dimes into 2 safe districts and crack the remaining 8 districts to win by the same margin, 8-2. Well, now that we've destroyed democracy, let's consider what this map would look like if the districts were drawn for compactness and keeping communities of interest together. You get evenly divided districts in an evenly divided state. Some go heavily dime, some go penny, but that's to be expected. People live where they live, and that is what democracy is about. It's not about party bosses rigging election districts so they can fix the election results.
Next slide. Now, we presented that to you. That gentleman's name is Robert Millman. We did this with his permission, and I would like you to take down this address that you can put in your phone or your computer. I don't think anything I'm going to say tonight will give a clearer demonstration to anybody you wish to show it to about what's going on and how it works. I think you can show somebody this video on your phone or your tablet or your computer, and they will get a quick, concise understanding of what's happening. And you can find the video and Mr. Millman at this address. He's a good teacher, and he's done a great service on this. He's also done other things that may interest you on this. He's done some really good work on a Pennsylvania gerrymander and what happened as a result of that. He's, he does movies that are very instructive, and I would recommend his services to you at any time. So this is the address. I hope you got those numbers. You've had time to write them and retain them both on your screens and someplace where you can reference them and pass them on to other people who are trying to understand what's going on. That's what's going on. Next slide, please. All right. So gerrymanders are bad for Florida. They harm our state. In Florida's unique case, especially, they ignore or flout the state constitution. They ignore and try to disenfranchise voters. They create unfair representation intentionally. They weaken faith in government. Why? Because if you think that the election's already been decided because of the shape of the district, people don't want to vote. All right. They assume that it's not really a democratic process. Now, I want to tell you that I was on another Zoom presentation with a pretty well-known figure in the Democratic Party with a lot of experience who was referring to something, and he said, well, that district's a loser. It's been gerrymandered and we can't win it. In fact, the particular district he was talking about wasn't gerrymandered, and it has been winnable by both parties in the past. But that attitude on the part of elected officials, on the part of party leaders, is very, very dangerous. It takes away from the work you want to do and should be doing. It invites the abuse of power. So gerrymanders, no matter what your partisan circumstances may be, I want to say to you, they're not healthy for you. Now, I've been a partisan for a lot of my career. On the other side, I was a senior Republican staffer at 3 different levels of government, all right? And I can tell you that uncompetitive districts are bad for everybody because they take away interest in elections and working hard to see what you can accomplish. You're much better off, I would contend, all of us are better off if districts are competitive and not gerrymandered. Next slide, please. Now, we use a very strong word here as the league. We said gerrymanders cheat democracy. Robert said it destroys democracy. What differentiates democracy from despotism is the notion of political competition, all right? And as you've been told, I have worked overseas. I've been in places where there is no or was no political competition. And even trying to build some political competition is a very daunting task once it's been lost. Gerrymanders are specifically designed to defeat political competition. And that's why they are so dangerous and bad for democracy. Next slide, please. Now, in 2019, the US Supreme Court ruled about partisan, party-based gerrymandering. And this statement says that they ruled that it's explicitly banned by the Constitution. Does anybody want to tell me whether or not they think this statement is true or false?
It's false.
Yes, that answer is correct. Next slide, please. All right. The Supreme Court in the Rucho case refused to block partisan redistricting. They left redistricting criteria to the states, making our own state constitution the measuring stick for what's going to happen in Tallahassee. All right. They even cited the Florida Constitution as a reason for not intervening in, quote, state business. All right. Now, the new maps, whatever's generated, are still subject to federal civil rights reviews on a much less vigorous basis, since they also ruled against Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
But there is still room for federal legal review under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And that's what's going on in Texas right now. That involves racial gerrymandering. And that's one of the issues in the Texas case. And that gives the feds the right to step in. It also gives the feds the right, the Attorney General, the right to keep an eye on what goes on in Florida. And it gives everybody the right to think about whether or not they want to sue based on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. But the real issue and what it comes down to is our own Constitution, which is unique. Next slide. Now, the League and a lot of our friends have been battling for fair districts. We've always and everywhere opposed gerrymanders. In other states, we are busy opposing gerrymanders that are well underway. In 2010, we got together with a Fair Districts Coalition, a group of partners, and we got amendments 5 and 6 to the Constitution on the ballot that year. These established the criteria for both congressional and state districts, and we got strong voter approval. 63% of the voters approved these amendments. Next slide, please. Now, I'd really like you to focus in here, maybe take a few notes. I want to explain these to you for your own purposes going forward. The Fair District Amendments created 2 main criteria, we call them top tier criteria, for legislative and congressional map drawing, okay? The first criteria is that districts may not be drawn to favor or disfavor a political party or an incumbent. Now, by the way, I have no idea who that incumbent is. Whoever he is, he gave his picture to Microsoft, and I just took it as part of the public domain. But that's the idea. You're not allowed to intentionally go after incumbents to favor or disfavor them. You're not allowed to try and make your party the beneficiary of writing the lines. Think about that. The major criteria for writing the lines in Florida is this. Next slide, please. Now, the second one is something very carefully drawn and the subject of limited understanding, okay? The districts shall, that legal word shall, not be drawn to deny a racial or language minority the equal opportunity to participate in the process and elect representatives of their choice. Please note that that does not say that for state districts, you have to draw districts with majority minority populations, all right? Now, this is controversial. A lot of minorities, having struggled to get representation over the years in Congress and the state legislatures, want majority minority districts to assure that persons from their group will get elected in each election. But I want to tell you that that's kind of an old attitude. I've been dealing with it in other places and states and even at the federal level when minorities were lobbying very hard to make sure that they got taken care of, and whatever happened with the rest of the districts, they weren't really that interested. They've begun to realize that that has disadvantages for them, that it may actually deny them opportunities to be represented in different seats, in additional seats. I'm going to demonstrate that to you in a moment. So that's criteria number 2. Those are the 2 main criteria that the writers of the districts in Tallahassee have to start with. That's their job. Now let's go to the rest of the things that they have to do. Next slide, please. So to round out the creation of the maps, the Constitution says that districts have to be contiguous. Now you can take a look at this old state Senate district, might be familiar to some of you, but this was a real district. It wasn't contiguous, it was broken by the lake. And look at the way it extended in broken pieces from coast to coast in Florida, representing wildly divergent communities. There never should have been a district that looked like this, but of course it was drawn for partisan reasons. But you're not allowed to do that under the state constitution anymore. You can't have broken districts. Next slide, please. Now, another thing you're required to do after you meet those first two criteria, you have to make compact criteria. All right, now I'm showing you here on this slide a bunch of maps. You be the judge here. Tell me which one of these districts looks completely compact, that you would describe as compact. Pick one or two.
Four.
I'd go
Four.
for four.
Four looks compact. Yes. Give me another one.
4 and 6.
Six definitely looks compact. What doesn't look compact?
The
10.
rest. Any of the rest.
Grossly not compact, right? 9 is strange. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you and any other citizen under the Florida Constitution can look at a map and you can see whether or not it meets this criteria. You can give it the eyeball test. And if you're lobbying or advocating for your community, this is something you can do and understand, and also measure it against other considerations you might have. You're as good as anybody else about making this judgment, and you can express that to elected officials. Next slide, please. Now, the districts also have to be of equal population. At the congressional level, this is very strict. It has to be within a couple of people. The courts have ruled over the years that these districts must be extremely equal at the congressional level. And that's going to be about 770,000 people per congressional district in Florida. This has to be like within 10 or 12 people. Very at the state legislative level, there's room, all right, to skosh a little bit on that. But there's going to be issues when these new maps are drawn about just how far they go in moving away from equal population. Is a 1% difference in population of districts okay? Well, maybe, but a 6% difference in population, is that fair representation? Does that meet this criteria number 5 of the state constitution? That's going to be argued about. Next slide, please. Now, finally, the map writers have been told that they have to do their best to honor the political boundaries and the geographical boundaries that make sense, all right? So political boundaries are obviously, these are your municipalities, all right? But also, what about major geographical boundaries? What about I-95? What about the Turnpike? What about some of the canals that divide communities in Palm Beach County? So they are asked as much as possible, as much as feasible, to honor these these local government and geographical boundaries. And they have to be ready to defend their decisions about this. And as maps may be challenged, this is going to be an issue. And that goes back to the cracking business, right? If you take a place that votes a particular way and you divide it up among 6 districts, it's pretty obvious what you're trying to do there. You're trying to crack the voters on a probably partisan basis when you don't pay attention to these things. Next slide, please. All right, now I've shown you what the criteria are, and I hope from this brief discussion that you can understand what they are for your own advocacy work. Now, we told you that we changed the Constitution. The voters changed the Constitution in 2010. And then the legislature went out and ran a completely bogus process. They ran a total lie in 2012 when they redistricted. They went through a big public series of hearings indicating that they were listening to the public on the basis of those amendments. But in secret, they drew a map and then they got caught at it. And they had to admit in court, after a 4-year battle in federal and state court, where our coalition won every case, all right, that they had indeed gerrymandered, that they had ignored the state constitution, and that they had violated their job as the legislature. So they were literally caught red-handed. Now, this is one of the districts that they drew. As you can see, you can imagine it's a minority district.
Hang on. I screwed that up. Wait. I screwed it up. Rich, I screwed that up.
Am
There you
I
go.
okay now?
Yeah, I had a question. Did they get fired?
Excuse me?
Did they get fired?
Their maps were thrown out. It's a good question. They got embarrassed thoroughly. This district they drew, to me, looks like maybe a seahorse. You can describe what it is. But again, it fails the eyeball test, and it helped us to win the case. But remember, minorities were unhappy about this, and they felt that we were taking away their influence. We'll get into this a little bit further. Let's go to the next slide. Now, the state Supreme Court ultimately threw out the maps for Congress and the Senate districts and basically took the League and our coalition's maps and put those into effect beginning in the 2016 elections. So the current districts, which are considered to be not gerrymandered for Congress, for the state Senate, and for the House, have not been ruled as gerrymandered. They've been ruled as competitive districts by the courts, okay? Now, in the fairly drawn congressional districts, minority representation actually increased in Florida. So the minorities learned directly that this new way of doing business, honoring these constitutional provisions, actually increased their representation in Congress. Next slide, please. Now, the challenge is right now. Redistricting is going on as we're talking about it. We know that politicians use the gerrymander to keep themselves in power, rig the districts, redesign election results. The single biggest predictor of a gerrymander is single party control, which you know that we have here in Florida. And we know that the Florida Supreme Court will automatically, once these things are passed, will automatically review the maps, and they will be responsible not only to the politicians, but to the public to say that the maps that were drawn did or did not meet those criteria that I just explained to you and which ordinary people can understand. So the Supreme Court is also on the line here, even though it's a different Supreme Court. It's going to have to rule up against some pretty clear requirements of the state constitution. Next slide, please. Now, the legislative committees have been meeting since September in the House and in the Senate in Tallahassee, all right? They've just finished their work for the present time last week. They have put out maps from both the Senate and the House. When the legislature reconvenes in January, those committees are going to keep working. They're going to be in a position to continue redrawing their maps. Before the end of the session, they're going to pass maps. And let's not be naive about this. Whatever passes is going to be governed by the legislative leadership. In the end, those committees are going to do the will of the leadership. And frankly, that's pretty much how it works in every state where the legislature controls the process, which in fact is most states, all right? Now, so it's the legislative leaders, their reputation, their willingness to honor or dishonor the state constitution, as well as the court, will be on the line in what they do. Now, in the case of the congressional map, because the governor can only veto that map, he's in a position to negotiate in advance. And whatever public position he does or doesn't take, everybody inside the ballgame will know that those maps were influenced to the degree the governor wished to influence them, all right? He can veto them, but if he vetoes them, it would leave Florida perhaps in limbo, and it would perhaps even leave the current map from 2016, the one the league and our friends put together, mostly in control of what happens. Now, next slide, please. We've given you the basics. We've told you how the game is set up. We've told you that it's constitutional. I hope we've talked realistically about the politics and the process here. And we want you to act. We want you to contact elected officials now. We want you to do it both in terms of the state delegation, who we've spoken to repeatedly, as recently as yesterday. We have discussed this with the state legislative delegation from our county 3 separate times, all right? And we've been very busy as the league in Tallahassee with our state president very actively advocating, which is our word for lobbying, about the need to follow the Constitution and avoid a gerrymander. When you talk to your elected officials, there are 2 things we want you to do. We want you to express your wishes for your community. Do not try to draw the map yourself. One of the things the legislature would like you to do, and I'm going to ask you not to do, is to draw your own map. Drawing your own map is too complicated a process for a layman. This is a very specialized thing. And when you balance out those 6 requirements, you get into some areas where it's very, very hard for you to create your own map, even though they'd like you to. Because last time, when the public created its own maps, they used those maps against the fair district in court. They said, well, we were only trying to honor Charlie's map, which was submitted to us, and made this a 90% minority district. That backfired. So I'm not asking you to draw your own maps. I'll show you how to monitor them in a minute. Name the people you want to vote with, all right? If Delray and communities around you are, and Boynton and West Palm Beach are set up in such a way with different communities of interest, it's very good for you to express to your elected officials at both the local and state level what you would like to see happen in redistricting. Now, I don't know what's going on in the jurisdictions that you come from. I've told you about the county, which I don't think is an issue. But what's going on in the big jurisdictions in the south part of the county? You should be asking your elected officials what's going on, tell you what's happening with redistricting, and then telling them, hey, I want to vote with this group of students, or I want to vote with this economic or this racial group. It's time for you to talk right now because maps are being drawn right now. But the most important thing is to talk to elected officials and make sure that they understand that the public is watching whatever is going on, that this is not a secret game. And the more comments, phone calls, emails they get, it shows them that they can't act in secrecy. Next slide.
Rich, I have a question about that, though. You said you're not sure who our representatives are. I mean, we're basically represented by Democrats who have very little influence in this process. Can we be writing to the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House?
Sure you could. Remember, every communication lets people know that people are watching. Now, all I'm asking you to do is communicate with elected officials at both the state and local level to let them know you're watching. All right? That's the most important thing to do at this moment. If they finish their task, and they've already done this in a municipality or something that I don't know about, ask them to explain to you what they did and why they did it. Again, you want them to be accountable to the public for what they're doing. But I want, in the next slide, I want you to go another step. I want you to contact anybody you know in the media. We've been working, for example, with the Palm Beach Post, which has tuned into this subject, which has done editorials, which has participated in events that the league has done about this. But Facebook, electronic media are very important. It's important that you post things in whatever social media you use and invite your contacts to do the same thing, to reach out, to understand what's going on, all right? Be ready, tell everybody to be ready to judge whatever the elected officials produce, particularly what Tallahassee does, to be ready to stand in judgment what the establishment does, and make sure through whatever resources you have in an activist group like this. I think you know people. I think you write letters to the editor. I think you're involved in websites and groups. You've told me you're progressive. I think that if you're involved in resistance groups, those are places where you need to be talking about this and ringing the bell of making sure that elected officials know that the public is watching whatever they're going to do. Next slide, please. Now, here's another one I want you to make a note of. You can follow the game by this website. This website is put together by some smart guys at the City of University of New York. And as each map comes out at the state level, you can go to this website, and I hope you'll write it down. It's pretty easy, florida.redistrictingnu.org, all right? And you can watch the game just as you're watching this presentation. As the maps get introduced, you can see what's going on. And I'd like what you to do, for an example, when you go into the maps, take a look at what the Florida House has proposed for its maps in the Tampa Bay area. And then think about some of the things I just showed you on screen and see what you think, all right? It'll show you an example that'll show you how you can give things the eyeball test, all right? Next slide, please. Now, I've told you that I hope you'll be active on this. I hope you'll give us a chance through your networks to make more presentations to other groups. We'll be happy to do this. If you'd like to learn how to present this stuff yourself, we'd be happy to train you. Regardless of your partisan activities, we'd be happier if you wanted to join the league and help us defend good government, especially on this subject where we're so active. Anybody that would like to get further involved in terms of requesting or doing a presentation can do it at this very easy Gmail address, marciavotes@gmail.com. All right. Contact her if somebody else, if some gated community wants a presentation. We'll be happy to do it. Marcia's the person to do that. If you want to get trained, we'll be happy to train you. So next slide, please. Now, finally, you will be able to get information about redistricting and updates at lwvpbc.org, our County League of Women Voters website, all right? But if you have questions, complicated questions, questions that you think about next week, and you want some information or you want those questions answered if we can, there's another easy address here. New PBC districts at gmail.com. If you send questions to us at that address, we'll do our best to give you the latest information that we have to further arm you. Now, there was an item raised that I intentionally ignored a little while ago. You mentioned that you're basically represented by Democrats, right? Democrats are on these committees in Tallahassee. They're not going to be decisive, all right, because they're in the minority. However, they will and they do keep sending the message that this is no longer a secret game, that this requires constitutional sniff tests, and the public can understand in a way they never have before just exactly what's going on. Because the legislature, the majority in the legislature, has refused to do any public hearings this time, having been burned last time by doing public hearings that were meaningless, they decided not to do that this time, all right? So it's a more secretive process. But individual members, any member, is free to do their own town hall on this subject, to advise their constituents about what's happening on the subject of redistricting. Remember, the box that those people represent, the boundaries on that box are moving, and they have an extremely personal interest now and in the future, even if they're term limited. Remember, if they're term limited, they might be thinking about the next box they might like to run in, all right? So it's important that you communicate with them in a reasonably informed way, which is what we're trying to do with this presentation. Now, finally, I'm going to tell you that as of the latest maps that have been produced in the past few weeks, the Senate, as they told the league they would, has tried to do a set of maps for the Senate and Congress that make a reasonable attempt, not a perfect attempt, but a reasonable attempt to comply with the Constitution. The chair of the Senate committee has said that he doesn't want the courts to take away his job of drawing the lines. I believe, honestly, that that is his public and private position. And I think the work he has produced so far is a reasonably good faith effort. So the Senate maps are, for the most part, not out of line. Now, they got one or two quirks in them that could use some fixing, but the Senate seems to have made a good faith effort. Perhaps that's a surprise to some of you, but it's reasonable when you look at the maps. They did use the fair districts as a starting point. The House, on the other hand, is clearly attempting a gerrymander. They're being very aggressive in terms of what they're doing in the congressional districts. So at the moment, as we speak, during this break, and while we head for the resumption of committee work and the passage of this legislation in about 90 days, all right, there are two bedposts sitting out there. One is constitutionally defensible for the most part, not perfectly. The other is not. It's a gerrymander. It's the House version. To the degree the Senate is pressed or pressured to move towards the House, the districts could be more unconstitutional, all right? At the moment, we think those are reasonable attempts at the districts. They're not perfect. Games have been played at the margins, but we have two very different things. That's another reason for doing things like town hall meetings where Democrats, now I know among our county delegation, Representative Skidmore has been pretty upset about what's going on in her house. And she's asked a lot of questions. She's asked for assistance from the league, and we're providing it. We will continue to, just as we would in the Senate. We are very actively talking to them in Tallahassee. All right. I don't know if you're going to do any work in Tallahassee. I've got a phone call coming in that I'm going to get rid of here. But the game is on. It's a game for activists. We hope that you will be active on this. I'm happy to take further questions now from anybody.
Hey, I'm gonna stop the share if we're done, so we can all look at one another again. Anyone
Got crowded.
want to start out?
Okay, Robert?
Hi, thank you for the great presentation. In regards to the potential for DeSantis vetoing the congressional map and what happens next, you did mention the possibility that it might default to the map as it existed in 2016.
Mostly,
Oh,
because a new district has to be created.
well, that's exactly what my question was going to be. How would they retrofit a 28 district model into a 27 district map? And how would they do it expeditiously and fairly?
The Senate's kind of shown how to do it. What they did was they created a new 28th district. They made it a Hispanic district to make it more defensible, okay? And they created a new district by splitting some areas in the Polk County area, okay? They showed a reasonable way to do it. The courts could take something like that. Okay?
Okay.
In other words, the governor could veto it, then the court is on the line, and it would be known that the governor was the source of doing it. It also creates a problem. We have to get these lines in place so that elections can be run.
Right.
So if I were the governor, and I have worked for a Republican governor, all right, I'd want to get this job done before those lines were passed. I wouldn't want to let it get out there pushing up against the deadline. I would want to exercise my power in a quieter way using the veto threat. But that's just me talking as an old governor's staffer.
Mhm. Okay.
What about the timing? If there are challenges, is it something that would be able to be fixed by the midterms?
You don't know. Let's assume that something like what happened in the last decade would take place. There'd be a period where whatever the legislative map was might be used, or a court-ordered map might be used. You're insiders. I want you to know that redistricting never stops. It's always, there's a raft of experts. Frankly, I'm not a consultant. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters who's been around this process in a lot of states, all right? I know what legislative leaders do when they talk about this subject, all right? Now, and I've worked for legislative leaders deeply involved in it. So there are going to be court challenges no matter what. How those are going to play out, you don't know. So a lot of things are possible, but the real issue in Florida is about the Constitution and the common sense ability to apply those requirements I've talked to you about tonight. Question, Char?
Yeah, you mentioned contacting different people up there to let them know we're watching. What's
Yes.
the most effective way to do that? Via email, via letters, via phone calls? And who's best?
Frankly, I'd use phone calls and I'd ask for somebody to contact me back. It's because you want to talk to an actual person, all right? Now you want to do that when there's staff around, okay? So don't do it between Christmas and New Year's, but that's what I do, all right? But you can use emails. You may be running into elected officials at events you're going to be at during the holidays. Perfectly fine to bring this up. Ask them what you can do to raise public awareness about this. Lots of things you can do.
Hey, Rich, I have one question. My name is Hassan Jahangir.
Yes.
The question is, if they file a case to the Supreme Court, who does that filing? Is the League of Bartholomew or other group or who?
Any group with, and I won't get into the legalities of it, any group with standing can file a federal or a state case.
And how long
Federal
that time?
Supreme Court involves racial gerrymanders, okay? The state Supreme Court involves challenging on the basis of the things that I told you about this evening.
Right. And then how long does the Supreme Court has to come a conclusion about the case?
They are pressed by the realities of the election, particularly the primary schedule, to determine, to issue order some districts to be used.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? Bob?
Yeah, so, moving from the theoretical or the statutorial to the pragmatic and the practical, given where we are right now in Florida, and the balance, the balance of power,
Or the imbalance of power.
or the imbalance of power, exactly. I'm talking now about the bicameral balance of power, and because you mentioned before about the sort of the gravitational pull on the Senate map towards the House map. Is that a fait accompli? Is that how it is more likely to occur than the other way around? And then similarly, given the significant stacking of the courts, how much of a fair shot are we going to get in the courts this time around?
Well, the courts are going to determine on these publicly understandable criteria. The judges are going to be judged. You've got to give them and everybody the understanding that because the Florida Constitution is clear, they're all going to be judged by the public. And the Senate leader on this, the Senate chair, is telling you he doesn't want to be negatively judged. All right. Now, the history of redistricting is that the two houses leave each other alone with their own districts. All right. So the Senate doesn't try to dictate the House districts. If the Senate doesn't want the work of the legislature to be thrown out by the courts, it will try to influence the House districts. But in the end, the House leaders will get their own way on their own districts, right? The same thing for the Senate. The jump ball is Congress.
Exactly. That's where I was going. So
Yep.
Please continue.
So that's what you should expect. It's almost impossible to imagine how, if we're moving from the Senate towards the House, that the map isn't going to move towards a gerrymander. That's the danger.
And again, it's more likely that it's going to go that way versus the other way with respect to the congressional district.
I wouldn't say that right now. I think I could make a case to you a lot of different ways, but you can assume it any way you want. It'll certainly go that way to the degree they feel they can get away with it.
And the court challenges, they be in state or federal court?
They'll probably be both.
Okay, I mean, because the landscape is a lot different than it was back in 2013. Both in the 11th Circuit and on the state Supreme Court. So
you couldn't be more correct. And again, things have really changed in those two places, but that still means that those two places are on the line. And suppose they baptize some weird looking maps. Their own institutions will be subject to a lot of embarrassment. Maybe they're willing to do that. That's a choice the Senate doesn't seem to want happen.
No, that was the other thing I was going to say, that I'll make a partisan comment and say that Republicans seem to have a much higher tolerance to shame. I mean, one of the things that there was a time when you could say that a politician was without honor, and they would be pretty upset. It might be true, but they want at least the appearance of honor. That seems to have gone away. If they get what they want, I mean, look at what happened with Coney Barrett. Look at what happened with stealing 2 Supreme Court seats using the exact opposite, having one rationale to do the first one. And then if you apply that rationale to the second one, there's no way you could do that. But then you invent a new rationale. And so I'm
In all those cases, and I worked in Congress, I've been around that, okay? In all those cases, they had room to set precedent. In Florida, there's a crystal clear measuring stick that ordinary people can apply, all right? And look, the Republicans have achieved their advantages using maps that are relatively fair. Places where things could have been more competitive, the Democrats weren't successful in competing those districts for whatever reason, all right?
Yeah, but
So there's a lot of opportunity in the current maps, and maybe there's a lot of opportunity in at least what the state Senate has produced. But still, if activists, informed people like yourself, are not willing to hold them accountable, I don't know. There's one other thing never gets talked about. The minority is always in a position to be the most truthful when things like this are going down. You are, because you don't have to make compromises within the governing majority to get something done. See Joe Manchin.
yeah.
You're in a position to call a spade a spade. So you have a particular role to play to tell the truth and inform the public.
yeah,
Yes, David.
yeah. One of the problems, of course, and I thought maybe it was in your presentation, but it is the statement that we tend to self-gerrymander, because Democrats tend to congregate in cities in large numbers. It's real easy for Republicans to gerrymander. It's much more difficult for Democrats in power to do this, because rural areas that are all spread out tend to be fairly heavy Republican. So you would think you'd be able to do it, but apparently you can't. And
well, look at Florida. Florida is one of the reasons pennies and dimes is so good. Florida, on a registration basis, is pretty evenly divided. And this silliness about the Republicans overtaking the Democrats in registration, you're inside the game, and you know that that's because of names that are being removed from the voters' rolls. But still, they're doing a better ground game than the Democrats are, and they've been doing a better ground game for a couple of cycles now. Whatever the reason is, I think that the attitude, what I'm in favor of, what I'm preaching to you, is competition. You've got to want to be competitive in places where you're not supposed to be competitive. A couple of years ago, a woman Democratic leader in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area decided she was going to be competitive, and she won a bunch of legislative seats that nobody thought Democrats could win. It's because she didn't accept the idea, and she out-organized the Republicans in what were supposed to be safe seats and won them. Okay, that's the attitude I hope everybody should have. I want everybody to feel that the election counts. I don't want to take anything for granted, whether I'm a Republican or Democrat. And to the degree you can do that, you heighten interest in elections. You do the opposite of what the gerrymander is designed to do, to make you feel that it doesn't make any difference. Well, because of all those rural voters, we can't appeal to them. I personally think you can, but that's your business.
Yeah, well, you remember Howard Dean, I mean,
Yep.
Howard Dean, 50-state strategy, elected Obama. And the first thing that happened afterwards was Obama appointed, I think, Tim Kaine. And we haven't had a 50-state strategy since. And the Republicans, started working at the state level very effectively. And that's what we need to be doing now.
Yep. That's your job.
I know. Any other questions? Well, Rich, thank you so much. That was great. And I really gave us a lot to think about and to do.
Well, I hope so. And thanks for the opportunity. And please, if there's anybody else that would like a presentation, just newppcdistricts@gmail.com or marshyourvotes@gmail.com. We'll get on the case.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
Now, I didn't announce at the beginning because I was waiting for more people to get on. We have two other speakers, so don't go away. We have some club business. One small thing, which is every December at the meeting, I need to appoint a nominating committee to make recommendations for positions. What? Hello, Julie.
Oh my goodness, hi, sorry, my camera's on. I apologize. I'm volunteering at the tree and doing this. This was a very informative meeting. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So, but hang around because, well, first let me do the business, which is to say that I asked Rob Resnick, our parliamentarian, to chair a committee of current board members to make the recommendations. I've spoken to some of those board members. He's going to be speaking to others, but there'll be a total of 5. And in January, they will recommend a slate. And at that meeting, anybody that wishes to announce their candidacy is welcome. The next 2 speakers, I don't know how many people are aware of Steve. I would imagine most people are. Steve West's group, The In Crowd, which seeks to marry local political groups like our club with people in the community who are doing work on behalf of underserved communities. And I heard 2 of them on Tuesday night. He had a whole slate of them, and we intend to be bringing others on in future meetings. It is not only personally rewarding to be doing these volunteer efforts and helpful to people in those communities, but it is also an advantage to our party. Right now, I think it's fairly obvious that people in underserved communities are better served by Democrats than Republicans, because Republicans really don't care about them at all. However, ever since I've been in Florida and been canvassing in minority communities, it has felt as if we are showing up every 2 years or every 4 years just to ask for votes. And we really need to have a presence in these communities and be doing what we can to help. So the 2 speakers from the other night that I invited tonight are Maura Plant from Living Hungry, and Houston Tate, who works in the Office of Community Revitalization in Palm Beach. So I'm going to turn it over to them. I think actually, Houston, did you send me the Did you
Yes, I
send
did.
me this afternoon? I don't know if I got it. I'm going to share the screen.
Yeah, yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, in fact, I sent it to everyone. I sent it to you, I sent it to Michael, I sent it to Steve, and I also sent it to Maura.
Okay, I am seeing something at 12:39. December, see the meeting flyer. No, but this was a link, right? Oh,
Yeah,
there it is. Yeah,
this is the link.
2.4 minute Country Club Acres. Great. Okay.
That is correct.
So I am going to now share the screen and then open that up. Share screen and
why they need it in you, and either by injection.
I'm okay. This is not working. Give me a second. Okay, I'm sharing. Is this it? Okay, yeah. All right, this ought to be the way. All right, can everyone see that?
No.
Not at the moment. We're seeing a gray screen.
Can see the screen, Mike.
Bring up presentation first and then switch to it.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, the problem is what I'm looking at, it's not opening the website. It's a movie. Oh, open with Cloud Convert. Hold on.
Oh, that sounds painful. You want me to try? If you send me the link, I'll.
Yeah, okay. Hold on. Okay, I just sent it. It's, there are a bunch of PDFs and then you'll see the link there. You got it?
Not yet. You know how this post office is working. All right, damn it. We're opening up a new one. No, but it's not surprising. I often don't get your emails. They get lost. They hate me. No. No.
Convert to video.
I think we're cursed. Technologically cursed.
Are you having the same problem?
No, I never got your link.
It's probably in your, I sent it at 8:15.
Oh, it just came. Okay, let me see if I can open it. Oh, it's some Google Drive thing. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was asking me for Cloud Convert.
okay. Find the link to the meeting. Okay, let's see if we can get it. It's a move. Okay, I have it. Country Club Acres. Country Club Acres?
Yeah, that's it. But when I clicked to start it, I just got the
No, mine started. So wait a minute. Let me share my screen. This is more difficult than one thinks. Okay,
with sound.
with sound. Yes. Okay. So let me go to share screen. You want country share sound, optimize video clip. It's good we just went through this. Well, share it. Anybody see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go.
Here she is.
Pretty rainbow.
All of these are different projects that the community has worked through our office. Cleanups, community gardens, landscaping, and a basketball court that was installed. Food distributions for the community. Turkey outreach program that provided turkeys for Thanksgiving. Different added park features, benches. Lights that was used as part of a lighting feature for the community. Here again, big benches that were installed throughout their social area. So Country Club Acres is one of 84. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Country Club Acres is one of 84 communities that my office is responsible for. All of these communities are within unincorporated Palm Beach County. They are no cookie cutter. They range from communities that are developing and organizing themselves to communities that are extremely unorganized and having difficulty to get started. So this happens to be probably one of the best communities that I have. You can tell by the number of projects that this group has been awarded over the last 2 to 3 years. And Maura has brought in food to this community. We've been able to serve food since March of last year. So this community has in fact organized itself because of the food. The food allowed people to get a chance when they were unemployed to eat. When they became employed, they were engaged together. And the great thing about it is now you can see from the slide, and by the way, this video was done by them. So this just goes to show you when you take the time to work with communities through the difficult times, they come back and show you their thanks, and they come back and show you their appreciation by using your investment, using the time that you're working with them wisely. And this video was sent to my office just to let us know that they appreciate what we've been doing for them.
Wow. So
there any
you have,
questions?
you have, you have communities, you said you were, had a map of communities in unincorporated Delray.
Right. Yes, I sent a map. There is a map so that you can look and see exactly where these communities are. They start, my northern point is Jupiter. So I go from Jupiter down to Boca and I go over to the Glades. I did have an opportunity to share with you pictures from our back to school event at the Palm Beach College. We had in the Glades, we had a food drive there in the Glades. So the spectrum is broad. And but the key thing is that communities are beginning to trust when government comes in and allow them to step in and articulate their own agenda. What you find is communities are now feeling that it's their plan and it's working because it's their plan. And so all of those different videos, or I should say, support documents that I sent to you, is just an indication of people being able, when they're given not a handout, but given training and given an opportunity. And I'm so grateful for Maura because let's face it, this started back in March of 2020. And she and I were working 7 days a week, taking food to the very community that you're looking at. Back in March, they were receiving hot meals 7 days a week. And they were receiving, when the meals went out and Maura tapped out on all of the restaurants that she was working with, then she came about bringing box food, and that went every day, or down, it finally went to once per week. And you can see the community now is the residual, they have come back, they are now getting stronger, and now they're in a point where they can work for themselves. And so that's what it's all about. And I'm grateful for partnering with Maura to provide the food at a time when it was needed. And I'm gonna tell you one other thing. What you see in that video would have never happened had it not been for the fact that we were there when they needed us. See, I do a lot of things in my job. We put in streets, we put in sidewalks, a number of things. None of these things help a community that need food. When a community needs something desperately and you find a way to service them, even when it's difficult, to service them as much as they need it, then and only then do you develop this relationship with them. And then and only then do you see them learning how to nurture, learning how to care for each other. So Maura and I have seen a range, a transformation from, you wouldn't have saw those smiling faces back in March of 2020. You wouldn't have seen the energy back in March of 2020. So I'm here to say that what we're presenting to you is that with these 84 communities, we would like, I have a monthly meeting. I would like to bring those communities to that monthly meeting, talk about what community improvement projects they have, and then match them with your organizations that will bring the volunteers. And this will be a way for us to provide sustainable community improvement projects throughout the year. We can manage it, we can schedule it. Everyone will be on board as to what it is. And I honestly would say that your organizations will play an important role in terms of engaging with these very communities. So I've talked to, in fact, I had a chance to talk to the president of this community just the other day. She couldn't be with us, but they're excited about the opportunity that there is volunteers to help them. They're tired. They've been working now for a long period of time, and some of this has fallen on the same group of people to do. So volunteers at this point in time will be crucial, but I can say without a doubt, it will not be a waste of your time. As you can see, these communities now are in a position to have the capacity to utilize that volunteer in a positive way and utilize it in a way that you will see a sustainable growth in that community.
Great, that's really inspiring. So should we have Maura talk a little bit about how she is working with you in Delray?
Yeah, I think it's a long meeting. You guys have been through a lot of thinking and challenging thoughts. So I think I'll just wrap up by sharing that we really want to invite you to put your hands on the work. Come out, help pass out some boxes, some meals, turkeys. You know, we have fun doing that. You know, building these gardens, painting these houses. Come meet your neighbors. They are in West Delray. They're a great group of people with like hundreds of little houses that are all really, you know, well kept. And then there's some that need a little support. You know, a single mom with a couple of kids, you know, working 2 and 3 jobs. June Neal and I had a really great conversation this morning about the challenge of feeding kids in the schools on the weekends. I feed homeless students. That's what we do in Delray. If you ever drove by Quezon all summer long, every Tuesday and Thursday, and you saw the boxes going out, that was our food. It couldn't happen without those volunteers from Quezon. So when we met Steve West and then Michael, and they were sharing about they're excited to introduce you to some people that are out here to invite you to participate with us in your own community. Meet your people that you guys are interested in working with for, you know, the greater good of the cause of themselves and their families and their kids and their lives. So that's what we're here to do tonight. And thank you for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, Houston, I can take your questions.
I do.
Any questions? Can you put in the chat, or I guess I can, your contact information so that
Sure.
people. The other thing that I thought of in connection with both of you is that we have a monthly newsletter. I mean, unfortunately, the December issue just got published, but we. You know, we're always looking for writers and articles. You know, if we can publish something from both of you, just, you know, a short, basically what you just said, so that there's something in writing. We publish it in hard copy, and then there's also a website so that people can, you know, have a way of learning about what you're doing and volunteering to help.
And another, okay, I'm sorry.
June?
Yes, Maura is selling herself short. Just giving us a small piece of what these people do. Wrap this up. Maura, if you could tell them a little bit about what you do when, for example, school is out and there are no school lunches, when there are breaks, the backpack program, all of those pieces that take place, you know, once that school bell rings.
Okay, we started in Delray Beach actually with a program for homeless students. They're McKinney-Vento students that the schools identify for us who's homeless that week. We built a real-time supply chain in partnership with the cafeteria teams, as well as Cisco, who is my warehouse and my trucks, and they bring the food just like the ketchup goes, you know, the fries go to the cafeteria, my food goes to the cafeteria. And so every single Friday, whoever's homeless that week, the school counselors are giving bags of food to those kids so that they don't have to go hungry over the weekend. So what that means is they get really great meals Monday through Friday. And then over the weekend, no matter where they go, if they're staying in cars or motels or domestic violence shelters, we have all of those in Delray Beach. We have 165 homeless students in Delray Beach right now. 50 of them are teenagers. So you've got 3 schools, Carver, Atlantic, and Village Academy High School. You have 52 homeless kids. So it is here, and we take care of them. So we enjoy doing it. We actually have a bunch of Christmas stuff. We're running out to every school starting tomorrow and then next Friday to all kinds of gifts to supply them with, you know, socks from Ann Gannon's staff, all the way through to Christmas sets from Angel Trees from St. Vincent Ferrer, So once people know that we support these homeless kids and we can get into their lives, then people come alongside of us and do all kinds of things. We have Selena Kupferman, who's from that neighborhood that she called because we helped her with food. She said, I want to give back. So she went and did an Amazon wish list, and she makes comfort care packs with her daughter. 60. She's delivering 50 tomorrow. I know,
Wow.
she's amazing. So these are the kinds of things that you guys can do. Anybody can do this. It doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes some energy to show up, and then you actually get, the joy out of it. You can see the joy in those videos of them, and that's just in their own neighborhood, just enjoying the beauty of building into their own neighborhood. So yeah, we like to feed people. June likes to feed people too. So we're hoping to do some things together. But Houston and I really started this about 4 years ago,
Yeah.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah, at least 4
And
years.
when you put food through that network, the network rises. People show up in order to take the box and pass it to their neighbor, or the meal and bring it to the senior citizen next door, right? Who can't come out. It's COVID. So, just being able to love a little on your neighbors, that's what we're hoping to bring. And Steve West is the reason why we're talking to you tonight with the in crowd. So we got to give proper kudos. He has the right model. We're not going to get people to care until we show them we care about them. So they can't care about what we're about. The Dems doing the movement that you're doing to help support them. If we don't show them, hands-on that we care. So we're all on the same page about that. And, if we can answer it. Houston is he's the director of the Office of Community Revitalization for the entire county. He's got a very big job. He has staff, but there's so many communities. And so tonight we really wanted to focus on this one in West El Rey that is really thriving and ready to receive your volunteer hours.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Really.
For everything.
Thank you for asking, June.
Hey, Steve.
It's important.
If there are no other questions, I'll give Steve the closing comments. I'm really so glad that you got me involved in this. So.
Thank you so much. And you're joined by between 20 and 30 other Democratic clubs and caucuses. And it's not one issue, it's not one place, but when the Democrats unite, come together and show that the Democratic platform, which is words, actually becomes a living organism. And when people get together, either solo on a project like this, that the whole club will take over, but they're not interested in this particular thing or not able to participate for any reason. We've got 12 different categories of issues in the community, everything from sports and community gardening, all the way to crime control, medicine, if you're a retired doctor, education with the public school system. We built a platform so anybody can participate and volunteer, give an hour a week or whatever they can and want to volunteer and get the Democrats into the community and build relations so people trust you. And then when you go in and knock on doorbell, you're not asking to vote. You're not asking them for something. You're asking them, what can we do for you? And the difference that it's going to make if you all participate and get up and get out is going to be incredible, because we've got the connections to get this publicized throughout the county, throughout the major media. So please understand the importance of this. You're dealing with two giants, the two people that spoke tonight, that they just touched the tip of the iceberg. I mean, Moore is doing this all over the county, and the support from Houston. How in the world, if you're facing this, getting all the homeless kids in this county, getting them fed and giving them food on the weekend, it seems like an impossible task.
Yeah.
And here these
They do
two
it.
people have organized, they have trucks from the trucking company, they have, the sheriff has given 10 cars and drivers to bring this food to every school. The schools are cooperating. It's just the idea that they had and the energy and the commitment to turn that into something that's doing so much good. And it's only one of the things that they're doing. So I will close and thank you for I hope I did it in 2 minutes.
That was great. That was great. And I'll just add, you know, when you ran through the categories of our areas in which we can help, that's why I thought after the meeting that it would be good to every one of our meetings going forward have 1 or 2 people come and speak, because everybody is interested in, as you said, doing different things: tutoring, community gardening, community cleanup, food,
Mentoring.
yeah.
Mentoring.
Mentoring,
Yeah.
tutoring, retired
Right.
teachers can help with the local
The
school.
tutoring, yeah. So-
Can I say just one more thing I forgot? And it's just the in-crowd website is very simple. It's in-crowd.org. And if you go onto it and you go to the building bridges section, you can see the 12 different categories. And if you click on the category that most interests you, or click on any of them, you'll find organizations like this that are working in Palm Beach County. We're exclusive in Palm Beach County. And if you want to volunteer or support in any way, you'll see the name of the person that's in charge of volunteerism, the phone number, the email, and a direct link to their website. So you don't have to go through anybody. You can just go direct to that website and get yourself involved. Advertisement.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna. It's been a long meeting, as Maura said earlier. So I'm going to close out now, assuming there are no more questions. Our next meeting is the second Thursday in January, whatever date that is. I don't know off the top of my head. We're hoping to have Charlie Crist come and speak either at the January or February meeting. And then we'll have some more people that Steve has told us about.
Michael, may I say one more thing?
Sure.
Most of us do our charitable giving this time of year, and maybe we should think about what Houston and Moore are doing, because if you could hear the whole story, your jaw would drop. I don't even know how it's humanly possible, but they reach people and sometimes in desperate need that would fall through the cracks. So if you're thinking about your charitable giving, this is a good place.
That's great. Yeah. So, yes, and I guess happy holidays, happy New Year to everyone. See you in January. Well, I'll see many of you much sooner than that, but okay. And look this weekend for go to the DelrayDemocrat.com and you'll see the December issue. All right, still got to put it up. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Just to let you know, we will have our public meeting will be on December 14th. I'll send you an invitation for everyone to come.
Wow.
It's a great opportunity to see all these communities call in. They talk about their issues. I mean, we've had situations where families in the Glades that lost everything, had to get a hotel, went from a hotel to get in an apartment, and then went from not having any furniture in the apartment. And it took about 3 months for us to help them. But I'm here to say, because of this need for people to come and hear what we're doing, many of the things were done. We had a refrigerator and stove donated to them. We had a couple in Boca Raton that said, I have a 12-foot cabinet here with a 65-inch TV. I want to give that to them and I'll buy me another one. I mean, so this family went from nothing to now have an apartment, have a home. They're in a home right now. And like I said, it happened over a 3-month period. So I didn't talk about all the things we do, but obviously because of poverty, because of unemployment, there are just some tremendous problems that people are having. And when you can come to our meeting and listen to our county departments as to what they're doing, listen to what other organizations are doing, you'll find that the answer is in listening to those who need your services the most. So I invite you all, I would strongly recommend that you come and hear that. And then we'll begin a pilot of what we're talking about today, aligning communities with volunteers.
And that's going to be on Zoom, a Zoom meeting, right?
It's actually on WebEx. It is a virtual meeting, yes.
Okay, right.
It's on WebEx. That's
Okay, if you would send me, I will send it out, not just to the people here tonight, but to everybody in our club, which is, you know, a bit a bigger group than we have had here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and for the work you do, both of you, Maura. It really is, you know, when you look around at all of the horrors going on, it's good to know that there are people like you. So
absolutely.
Thanks, and good night, everybody.
Good night.
Dave, you want to shut us down? Countdown.